Okay, so we've got Apple's A18 Pro chip. The one that's powering their big push into AI with all these crazy new features on those iPhones. But here's the thing. It's not just about raw power. It's about how they get there.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're going to dive into what makes this chip special, especially for you, even if you're not like a total tech whiz.
And what's fascinating to me is that Apple is making some really, really interesting moves with this A18 Pro chip. They're clearly focused on efficiency, which might not seem that flashy on the surface,
Right.
but it's a huge deal in the long run.
It is a huge deal because, everyone wants their phone to last all day, even with all this new AI stuff running in the background.
Right.
So first things first, the A18 Pro, it's in the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max models. And Apple seems to be betting big on this chip, which is why we're doing this whole deep dive, right?
Yeah.
So efficiency is key. But how did Apple actually achieve that with this A18 Pro?
Well, one of the first things that really jumped out at me from, all the analyses and teardowns was the A18 Pro size. We're talking about the actual physical size of the chip.
Okay.
Smaller is usually better, right?
Smaller usually means less power consumption.
Exactly, which is good news for battery life.
Right.
But didn't this chip use a newer manufacturing process, one that was supposed to make chips bigger?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Exactly. Both the A18 and the A18 Pro are built using this new process from TSMC. It's called N3E.
Okay.
Now, it's a bit technical, but basically it's supposed to make chips bigger. Yet, Apple kept the A18 Pro the same size as the A17 Pro.
Wow.
Tech Insights, they actually went in there and confirmed this. It's quite a feat of engineering, really.
So what does this actually mean for, the average person who just wants a phone that works well? They don't really care about chip size. They just want it to work, right?
Right.
So what does it mean for them?
It means that Apple had to get really creative with this chip's design. I mean, they likely had to prioritize which features to include, and how to lay everything out on the chip, physically lay it out to maximize efficiency within that limited space.
So doing more with less.
Exactly. Doing more with less. And that's where it gets interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What might they have sacrificed to achieve that?
Well, that's the big question. And to understand that, we need to take a closer look at the CPU, the brains of the whole operation, right?
The CPU.
Yeah, now the A18 Pro uses a 6-core CPU, just like the A17 Pro. 2 high-performance cores, 4 efficient cores.
Okay, so same core count. But is it actually faster than the previous generation?
Oh, absolutely. Geekbench scores, they show that the A18 Pro is about 15 to 18% faster than the A17 Pro.
Okay.
And even more impressive is that the regular A18, the one in the iPhone 16, the non-Pro, is actually holding its own against some older desktop CPUs in certain single-core performance tests. Yeah, we're talking about chips like the Ryzen 9 9950X, which was a powerhouse just a couple of years ago.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that puts things into perspective.
Yeah.
What are some ways they could have, achieved these performance gains without just boosting the clock speed, making it run hotter?
Well, it likely comes down to architectural tweaks, right?
Okay.
And how they've optimized this chip's design. Remember, Apple, they control the entire ecosystem, right? From the hardware to the software. So that allows them to fine-tune exactly how the chip interacts with the software, squeezing out every bit of performance and efficiency.
Okay, so Apple's doing a lot to optimize this A18 Pro, but how does it actually stack up against the competition? Specifically, Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Elite. That's their top dog right now, right?
It is. That's a great question. And that's where things get really, really interesting. The Snapdragon 8 Elite, it is a formidable chip. Early benchmarks show it's neck and neck with the A18 Pro in some areas, even winning in multi-core performance sometimes.
Oh, so Qualcomm is actually a real contender now. I remember when Apple's chips were just way ahead.
Yeah, the competition is definitely heating up.
Okay.
But here's the thing. The A18 Pro, it often achieves this performance while using less power.
Whoa.
And that's a major win for Apple. And for you, ultimately, right, because it translates to longer battery life.
Absolutely. Who wants a super powerful phone that dies after a few hours?
Exactly. Nobody. And you know what? This focus on efficiency, it might be a clue as to why Apple was able to keep that die size down. They're making deliberate choices about how they use power and space on that chip.
So they're thinking ahead. It's not just about, this generation. It's about what's coming next.
Exactly. They're playing the long game, right?
Yeah. So Apple might be ahead in this efficiency game, but what about graphics performance? Isn't Qualcomm making some pretty big claims about their new Adreno GPU?
Oh, they are. They are. Now, Qualcomm, they're making some big waves with their new Adreno 830 GPU. They're claiming it's way faster. I mean, they've even implemented something called a sliced architecture with 12 millibeats of dedicated GM for faster rendering. And they're saying it's a 40% improvement in graphics performance with a 40% gain in efficiency. So that's pretty huge.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So where does that leave Apple? Are they falling behind in the graphics department?
Well, some tests do seem to back up Qualcomm's claims, but, Apple's GPU, it still holds its own, especially when you consider power consumption. I mean, we've seen tests with games like Wuthering Waves, Honkai, Star Rail, and the A18 Pro. It's still capable of ray tracing and high frame rates.
Right. So they're not out of the game, but it sounds like Qualcomm is, stepping up their game.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All this power is amazing, but it's really just the foundation, right?
Yeah.
It's like where it gets exciting is how this A18 Pro handles AI. We're talking about a 16-core neural engine capable of 35 trillion operations per second.
That's hard to even grasp.
It's a hard number to grasp.
It is.
Okay.
And it really highlights a key area where both Apple and Qualcomm are pushing the boundaries. Now, the Snapdragon 8 Elite, it also has a very powerful NPU. And they've increased the token limit, essentially meaning it can handle more complex AI tasks right there on the phone itself.
Okay. What does that actually mean for the kind of AI this chip can handle? Like, can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine real-time language translation that's incredibly accurate.
Oh, wow.
Even for nuanced conversations. Or think about personalized health monitoring that can detect subtle changes in your well-being. This is the kind of future these chips are enabling.
So it's not just about, how fast your phone can open an app anymore. It's about what your phone can actually do with all that processing power, right?
Precisely.
And AI is a huge part of
The
that.
AI is a massive part of that. It's not just about specs on paper anymore. It's about the experience these chips create.
Yeah.
And that's something we'll be exploring in much more depth as we continue our deep dive into the A18 Pro.
You know what's really interesting to me? It's how this whole focus on AI plays into the bigger picture of mobile technology. We're seeing this kind of convergence of smartphones, laptops, even desktops.
So you're saying our phones are becoming more like these powerful computers.
Precisely. And AI is right at the heart of that transformation. It's not just about raw processing power anymore. It's about creating intelligent devices.
Okay.
Devices that can actually learn and adapt to what we need them to do.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all ties together. But earlier, we were comparing the A18 Pro to Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Elite, right?
Right.
So how does this focus on AI and the overall user experience, how does that differ between Apple and Qualcomm? How do they approach it differently?
Well, remember, Apple, they design both the hardware and the software for the iPhone, right?
So this tight integration allows them to create a really seamless and optimized experience. They can actually tailor the A18 Pro's neural engine to work perfectly with Apple's own AI features in iOS.
So they have more control over how the AI actually works on the phone?
Exactly. For example, they can ensure that AI features like real-time language translation or personalized health monitoring, they're deeply integrated into the operating system. Makes them feel more intuitive, more responsive.
But Qualcomm's chips are used in a wide range of Android devices from all these different manufacturers, right?
Right.
So does that make it harder for them to achieve that same level of, integration?
It definitely presents a challenge. Qualcomm has to create a chip that can work across a much more diverse ecosystem of devices and software versions.
Yeah.
They can't necessarily optimize for specific features or experiences in the same way that Apple can.
So does that mean that Apple has kind of a significant advantage in terms of how they implement AI?
It gives them a certain edge, for sure. They can really fine-tune that AI experience to perfectly match their vision for what the iPhone should be.
But isn't Qualcomm known for packing a lot of features into their chips, like things like integrated Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, 5G?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that give them an advantage in terms of just overall versatility?
It does. Qualcomm often includes more integrated components in its chips compared to Apple. Apple relies on separate chips for things like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth.
So it's kind of a trade-off, right?
It is.
Apple goes for this more streamlined, integrated approach, while Qualcomm is we're going to pack in as much functionality as we can.
Exactly. It's different approaches to chip design and what each company values, right?
Right.
Apple, they focus on creating this tightly controlled ecosystem where everything works together seamlessly.
And that's reflected in their chip design philosophy.
Precisely. Qualcomm, on the other hand, they have to cater to a much broader range of devices and use cases. Their chips need to be adaptable, they need to be versatile.
So there isn't necessarily a better approach. It just depends on what the priorities are, the overall goals.
That's a great way to put it. And, both companies are pushing the boundaries in their own ways, which ultimately benefits us, the consumers,
Right.
gives us a wider range of choices, and really drives innovation across the entire mobile landscape.
Okay, so we've talked about all the technical details of the A18 Pro, performance, its efficiency, those AI capabilities.
Yeah.
But what does all of this actually mean for someone who's considering buying a new iPhone? What kind of experience can they actually expect?
Well, think about it this way. The A18 Pro, it's designed to power a future where your iPhone is more than just a phone.
Okay.
It's your personal assistant, your entertainment hub, your creative tool. It's so much more.
I like that. It's not just about making calls and browsing the web anymore.
Exactly. With its powerful CPU and GPU, the A18 Pro can handle demanding games, apps with ease. You can edit high-resolution videos, create stunning 3D graphics, immerse yourself in these augmented reality experiences without any lag or stuttering.
And with all those AI capabilities, your phone can actually learn your habits and anticipate your needs.
Right.
It can suggest apps you might want to use, personalize your notifications, even optimize battery life based on how you actually use your phone.
It's about creating this more intuitive and personalized experience. Imagine your iPhone adapting to you rather than you constantly having to adjust to it.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But what about privacy concerns with all this AI happening right there on our phones?
That's a valid concern, absolutely. As our phones become more intelligent and they're collecting more data about us, it's crucial to consider what that means for privacy and security. And that's something that both Apple and Qualcomm are very, very aware of.
So what are they doing to address those concerns?
Well, Apple has a very strong reputation for prioritizing user privacy. They've built features right into iOS that allow you to control how your data is used and shared. And they've made significant investments in on-device processing, which means more of your data is actually being analyzed on your iPhone itself rather than being sent to the cloud.
So they're trying to keep your personal information as local as possible.
Exactly. And Qualcomm is making strides in this area as well. They have features like their AI processing unit, which can handle some AI tasks without needing to access the cloud. And they're also working on, new security protocols, encryption methods to really protect user data.
So it sounds like both companies are, taking privacy and security seriously, which is reassuring.
It's a top priority, absolutely. And it's something that will continue to be a huge focus as AI becomes even more integrated into our devices.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we wrap up, I wanted to kind of circle back to something we touched on earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that Apple is kind of playing the long game with this A18 Pro's focus on efficiency.
Right.
It might seem like a subtle detail, but it actually speaks volumes about Apple's vision for the future.
It does. It really does.
Not so.
Well, think about it. As our phones become more powerful and they can handle these, more complex tasks, especially all these AI-driven features, the demand for energy is only going to increase.
Okay, that makes sense. So if Apple isn't prioritizing efficiency now, they could run into problems down the road.
Exactly. They could end up with phones that have these amazing capabilities but terrible battery life, and that wouldn't be a good experience for anybody.
No. But by focusing on efficiency now, they're setting themselves up for a future where our phones can do more for longer without needing to be tethered to a charger all the time.
Precisely. It's a strategic move that could give them a significant advantage in the long run.
It's like they're building a foundation for the future of mobile computing, and efficiency is a key part of that foundation.
Well said. And that's something worth considering when you're comparing the A18 Pro to other chips on the market.
Okay, so efficiency is a key differentiator for the A18 Pro. But there's still one big question we haven't really addressed. Is it actually worth upgrading to an iPhone with this new chip?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And the answer, like most things in tech, it depends.
Okay, so we spent this whole deep dive exploring this A18 Pro chip, from its surprisingly small size to the performance gains.
Yeah.
And these mind-boggling AI capabilities.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It really is. And we saw how Apple's focus on efficiency might actually be a strategic move for them.
Oh, absolutely.
Kind of setting them up for a future where our phones can do more for longer without needing a charge every few hours.
Absolutely.
And we compared it to Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Elite.
Yeah.
Highlighted how both companies are really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with mobile technology.
They are. They're both pushing the limits.
But now, for the question that's probably on everyone's mind.
The big one, right.
The big one. Is it actually worth upgrading to an iPhone with this A18 Pro chip?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer, like most things in tech, is it depends.
Okay, let's break that down.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things, the factors someone should think about when they're making this decision?
Well, first and foremost, what phone do you have now?
Right.
If you're coming from an iPhone 15 or older, the performance jump will be noticeable. You'll see faster app launches, smoother multitasking, better gaming performance.
So if you're feeling like your current phone is starting to, slow down or struggle with certain things, the A18 Pro would definitely be an upgrade.
Oh, yeah. Significant upgrade.
Okay.
But if you already have an iPhone 15 Pro or Pro Max, the difference might not be as dramatic.
Okay.
You'll still see some improvements, especially in those AI-powered features, but it might not be that must-have upgrade.
Right, because the A17 Pro was already a very capable chip.
It was a powerhouse. So it really comes down to how much you value those incremental improvements.
Okay.
And, of course, how much you're willing to spend.
Right. What about people who are considering switching from Android to iPhone?
Yeah.
Is this A18 Pro like a compelling enough reason to make that jump?
It could be. It could be. I mean, the A18 Pro, it's arguably the most powerful mobile chip on the market right now.
Yeah.
And Apple's, that tight integration of hardware and software, it creates a very, very smooth and polished user experience.
But we do have to acknowledge that, Qualcomm is catching up with their Snapdragon chips.
They are. And some Android phones, they offer features that you won't find on iPhones, like
Right.
Expandable storage,
Right.
or more customizable software.
Right. So there's trade-offs to consider on both sides.
Absolutely.
It's about, finding the phone that best fits your needs and priorities.
Exactly.
Okay. But let's say someone is really on the fence about upgrading. What's the one thing that would make this A18 Pro a must-have for them?
I'd say it's the AI capabilities. This is where the A18 Pro really shines.
Yeah.
That 16-core neural engine is incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And
Apple is leveraging that power to create some truly innovative features.
You're talking about those new AI-powered photo editing tools, the real-time language translation, the personalized health monitoring.
Yeah, those are features that are only possible because of a chip as powerful and efficient as the A18 Pro.
Right.
And I think we're really just scratching the surface of what's possible with on-device AI.
Yeah. It's exciting to think about what's coming next for our smartphones.
It is. It's a really exciting time to be following this technology. And if you want to be on the cutting edge of that future, the A18 Pro is a pretty good place to start.
So it's a powerful chip, it's incredibly efficient, and it's really paving the way for this future where our phones are more intelligent and more helpful than ever before.
That's it. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, is the key takeaway from this whole deep dive.
It has been a fascinating journey exploring the intricacies of this A18 Pro.
Mm-hmm.
We delved into the technical details, the competitive landscape, and the implications for the future.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, we've given you the knowledge to make an informed decision about whether this chip is right for you.
That's right.
As always, it's about finding the technology that best aligns with your needs and how you actually use your devices.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the A18 Pro. We'll be back soon with another exciting topic to explore. Until then, stay curious.